Joining me now with more, Sheriff David Clarke of the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, and Eric Guster, attorney and political commentator. Great to see you both. Eric, let me start with you. What's the problem with Senator Sessions? You heard the Trace report lay it out.
There are several problems with Senator Sessions. That's why it's very important that he is vetted. Now, I'm not calling him a racist, but a lot of people feel that he is. However, that is what vetting is all about. Excuse me, Megan?
Based on what?
Based on his history. When you have a person who worked with someone and called them boy, or who allegedly supported the KKK, which he denied, and that's the purpose of vetting. That's why it's very important that through this process, for him to become Attorney General, that he's properly vetted, that people who have testimony that could go to his character are brought forth and under sworn testimony and told exactly what they're saying and what he may have said. So, Megan, he would be the Attorney General, the person in charge of civil rights litigation for this nation. That's why he must be one that is fair for everyone, that is not has any racial bias or racial type of leaning, and he's very fair to everyone. That's why he would be everyone's AG.
Sheriff Clarke, anything wrong with vetting?
Oh, no, nothing wrong with vetting, but let's be fair about this. Look, President-elect Donald Trump could not have found a more fair, qualified, committed to the rule of law and equal justice under law for everybody than Senator Sessions. I got to know Senator Sessions, worked with him on several issues on Capitol Hill. Look, I wasn't around in '86, but most of those allegations have been discredited up to now. And this man, this fine man, and I'm tired of people having their character assassinated by this almost like a sport that the left likes to play. When you can't beat somebody on the merits, just throw the R word up there and then watch them scream and squirm and try to get out of it. There's only three things in life that just a mere allegation of can be career destroying. It's to be accused of being a domestic abuser when it's not true, a child molester when it's not true, or a racist when it's not true. Look, Senator Sessions will be confirmed. It'll be tough, but there's nothing wrong with that. But I get tired of this R word being bandied about, like I said, as if it's some sort of sport.
Eric, why would he put the head of the KKK in jail? Why would he go after the head of the KKK and do all the things you heard outlined in that Trace Gallagher report if he were some racist?
Right, and not only that, he sought the death penalty.
She asked me the question, Sheriff.
For that Klan member who killed a young black boy, Michael McDonald. And also,
just because he helped
desegregate the schools. Senator Sessions helped desegregate the schools in Alabama. You know, he spent the last 30 years. Look, nobody's perfect. If he made some statements, he called somebody boy.
Don't worry, Eric,
Megan, I refer to myself as that.
Can I answer the question, Megan?
Where are you from? I tell him I'm a Milwaukee boy. Okay, if some people are offended by that, I get that, but that's being hypersensitive.
Oh my God!
We need to knock this stuff off.
Just because he did his job,
and he needs to be vetted.
Just because he did his job,
vetted on his qualifications.
Just because he did his job,
the Attorney General.
Let's give
of the
Eric
United
the
States
floor
of
now.
America.
It's his turn. Go ahead, Eric.
Just because he did his job does not mean he has a lack of. Just because he did his job that one time does not mean that he is not racist. That is why he needs to be vetted. I am not saying that he's a racist. However, he does have a history of not doing things that are fair to all people. That is why so many on the left want to make sure that he is properly vetted, that people are brought in to testify whether or not happened.
Don't just issue broad statements like that. What specifically has he done that's not fair to people?
He prosecuted several people who were registering voters, black voters, and claimed that they were doing things illegally, which is not true. He also, I'm from Alabama, so I know the history of Jeff Sessions, and I'm very aware of the things that he is accused of 30 years ago. And just because something happened 30 years ago does not mean that it's too far away that it's not relevant now, because this is the Attorney General's position where he is in charge of civil rights litigation, and we have such a broad lane of racial injustices happening that we need help.
Well, we'll find out, because judges and juries would have had their say in those cases, and if there were convictions, you know, then the civil process or the criminal process would have played out. We're going to look into all that as he goes forward with his confirmation hearings. Gentlemen, good to see you both.